It is finally game day. Welcome into Daily Faceoff Live. I'm Tyler Yaremchuk. He's Frank Seravalli. The show is a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. And Frank, about 50, 60 feet away from us, behind here at the Bell Center, we're going to have puck drop tonight. We're doing Canada and Sweden. I'm excited.
Can't wait. What a build up to this moment. Couple days of previewing, media day, couple of practices for these teams to get familiar with each other. But this is it. This is where the rubber meets the road. And it's fascinating because this is such a short tournament. All you're guaranteed is 3 games.
Yeah.
Matthew Tkachuk referred to them as 3 game sevens. And it's not necessarily about who has the best team. In this game, it's going to be about who can get off to the quickest start. And so we'll dive deep into Canada, Sweden, but can't wait for this to finally get rolling. It's been a long build-up, a couple years now since we've had Four Nations face-off confirmed. We've debated the rosters and the decisions. We've talked about the line combinations, the power plays, who's starting in net. Lot to digest, but it's awesome and it's here.
Yeah, and the puck will drop in 8 hours, and that means, who knows, maybe 4 or 5 hours from now, Lacage, the brewery we're in right now, it's going to be packed with Canadian and Swedish hockey fans. The atmosphere is going to be incredible, Frank. Let's start with some talk about the team who will be playing on their home soil tonight, Team Canada, and the goalie who will be getting the start confirmed to be Jordan Binnington of the St. Louis Blues. And an interesting decision that Canada had to make. We had Carter Hutton on the program yesterday, and he talked about how he would be going with Adin Hill, John Cooper going the other way. And listen, they're really... I don't know if there was a right call or a wrong call to make here between these two guys.
Coin flip.
Yeah, I went and looked at their numbers. Both of them are sub 900 since Jan 1. Both of them were sub 900 in 3 of their last 5 starts before this break. It's just a gut feel, I think, from Cooper.
Yeah, and look, if there's one thing that you want your team to portray, it's confidence. And no one has more confidence, I believe, of any NHL netminder than Jordan Binnington. Didn't matter if he was in the ECHL or if he was on his way up to winning a Stanley Cup and turning around the St. Louis Blues season back in 2019, going from last place all the way to Game 7 of the Cup final. He's had it. And so maybe that exuding that confidence, even if your game isn't at that level, is also part of what Team Canada needs, because everyone heads into this tournament knowing that Canada has the worst goaltending here. That's clear. The 4th of 4 teams, and if you were to stack all the 12 goalies up against each other, Canada probably has 9, 10, and 11 or something
Pretty
like
close,
that.
yeah.
And then Sam Ersson gets the 12. But still, that's going to be a big talking point. And I think if you're Canada and you're the management staff and John Cooper, all you're hoping for is just league average. Just give me something that enables us and gives us a chance to win. And I think with the forwards and defense that Canada has assembled, the superpower, the juggernaut, they're the 800-pound gorilla in this tournament. Maybe that's all you need.
Yeah, and I was having this conversation yesterday on my Oilers Nation show, but how many shots is Canada even going to be giving up in these games? We talked about how good that forward group is, how good that blue line's going to be at moving the puck out of their own end. They might Binnington might only have to face 22 to 25 shots a game here.
Might be less than that.
Yeah, it might be less.
I mean, look, Canada should theoretically have the puck. It feels like all game. Why this is an interesting matchup, and that probably transitions us to our second topic, which is how can Sweden win?
Mm-hmm.
What makes this such a juicy matchup is Sweden's defense might be the biggest and best in the tournament. And the name of the game is going to be getting kills. And so if you're Victor Hedman or Matthias Ekholm, or pick one of the big Swedish defensemen with a big bushy beard, that's going to be the way you can get to Canada, is create turnovers and get the puck up to your forwards and get it moving the other direction to create shots. Get out of your own end. That's going to be the key. So if you're looking for a path to victory for Sweden, it's can Sweden's defense knuckle down against Canada, because they're going to be pinned in for stretches, and it's going to have to be getting comfortable in that position of being uncomfortable.
Yeah, what I had for a key to victory was quick strike offense. We know Philip Gustafsson is going to have to be good. We know the blue line, like you said, is going to have to get kills here. But for me, I don't know how many second, third opportunities you're going to get in the offensive zone. If you're going to
have to be opportunistic.
You're going to be very opportunistic. I look at guys, we've talked a lot about Lucas Raymond, a lot about Adrian Kempe, these guys who can score off the rush. I think those forwards are going to be absolutely massive tonight for Sweden.
Yes, and what I would also add to that, and I Look, I don't want to be that guy. I hate when anyone says this in terms of keys to victory. But if you could somehow, you mentioned quick strike opportunity. How about just getting a quick strike period to start the game? If you could put this building and Team Canada a little bit on edge, all of a sudden everyone starts to think about how short of a tournament this is.
Yep.
This is like kind of like an NFL regular season game. Every little bit means something. And if you're able to win a period and then stack another period on top of that, all I'm saying, not predicting a Sweden victory, just saying if they could somehow get out to an early lead, get one behind Binnington, plant a seed of doubt in Canada that their goaltending isn't it, maybe you start to see that roll a little bit.
Goaltending on the other side of this matchup, Philip Gustafsson getting the start for the Swedes, and it's been a start of the season that's almost a tale of two halves. In October and November, 929 save percentage. From December 1 onward, a 903, a 26-point drop in his save percentage. If Sweden gets the Philip Gustafsson from early in the season, they'll be in a good spot tonight.
I don't want to say this is a controversial decision because we also saw when Linus Ullmark came back from injury, he wasn't very good. But I'll be real curious to see whether or not Philip Gustafsson gets all 4 games or all 3 games in this tournament for Sweden. Because it's not that he hasn't been good, he has, but hasn't been really good in a while. Yeah. So his overall numbers, to your point, 915 save percentage on the year, looks really good, right? It's probably a little bit of a tick above Jake Ottinger, the number 2 for Team USA. But it's about consistency. And as Team Canada pointed out multiple times throughout this process, we're not necessarily looking for the best players. We're looking for the players who are playing their best right now. And that wouldn't be Philip Gustafsson, but it also kind of wouldn't be Linus Ullmark based on the time that he missed and et cetera. So I think a little bit of a tough call if you're Team Sweden, but either way, in a better position goaltending-wise than Canada.
Yeah, I had a chance to chat with Matthias Ekholm a couple of days ago, Frank, and he's going to have to go up against his teammate in Connor McDavid, which is a nice transition to our third topic for the show today, which, I mean, we've talked a lot about, oh, man, we get to see Crosby play with McKinnon and Hughes and Matthews and all these different combinations. But what about those teammates who are now on opposite sides? I got a couple of questions for you that involve those situations. Austin Matthews versus Mitch Marner. Matthews playing with Jack Hughes. Marner going to be on that line with Connor McDavid and Sam Reinhart. If you had to pick between these two, who do you think finishes the tournament with more points?
I would go Marner.
Okay.
Look, I know that Austin Matthews hasn't been at his best this season by his own standards. Yep. The injury has been a significant one. And even when he's played, he just hasn't really passed the eye test. Be curious to see if he gets some of that swagger back in a tournament like this. That's kind of been missing. But Marner has been the Leafs' unquestioned MVP this year. And not only that, but takes another step forward playing with players like this in this tournament. So you're talking about the elite 1%ers. And I have a feeling with his poise and the way that he can manage the puck is going to be critically important for Canada. So I'm going to go Marner here in this situation.
Next one I got for you, I'm going to spin it to you in a bit of a different way, but Matt Tkachuk and Alexander Barkov will be on opposite sides when Finland takes on Team USA. Which player will be more impactful for their team? Not more points, but who plays a more important role?
Well, Matthew Tkachuk's going to play a massively important role, but if Finland has any chance to compete, it's going to be Barkov. We've joked and called this the 3.5 Nations tournament based on how Finland's blue line has been decimated. And if they're going to have any chance in front of UC Saros, it's going to be because you have multi-time Selke Trophy winner Alexander Barkov with that humongous brain of his and this Finnish forward group thinking their way around the ice, outsmarting the opponent. And if Finland has a chance, it's going to be on Barkov's shoulders because otherwise that defense core isn't Stanley Cup playoff worthy, let alone best on best international tournament worthy. So they're in tough, but guys like Barkov they're gonna need him to give a fighting chance. So more critical to team success is Barkov.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about having to overcome that blue line, good defensive forwards. Finland does have a bunch of them. That could be a path for them. Let's wrap this up with two guys who are no longer teammates, Frank. Elias Pettersson and JT Miller. I'm not going to ask you to predict who's going to get more points, but I'll just ask you, when they meet, do you think we'll see any sort of fireworks there?
Yeah, I'm expecting at some point, if JT Miller can line him up, a thunderous body check. And that I'm not saying that in jest. Like, I just think there's been so much said, so much reported, so much angst. JT Miller and Elias Pettersson, no love lost. That part has been obvious. But now put on JT Miller, a USA jersey in a competitive environment like this one where the juices are flowing, and Pettersson, where we've had serious question marks about his compete, which, by the way, his teammates predicted yesterday, you're going to see a different Elias Pettersson in this tournament. I'm not convinced based on the last calendar year that we've seen from him, but let's see if he can turn it on, because that would be unbelievable for the Canucks. Not necessarily, you're not going to wash the stink off of this season and the way that it's played out. It's not going to be cleansing by any stretch. But if you can somehow find a way to have Pettersson have a big tournament and get his confidence back, I truly believe that the biggest issue facing Pettersson is right between his ears. He's been his own worst enemy with his attitude and the way that he's played. So if he can get back to that confident level, maybe some of the magic from Team Sweden rubs off on him in this tournament, which would be hugely beneficial for the Vancouver Canucks.
We're going to get to our friend Scott Burnside in a few minutes here, but first I wanted to turn your attention to a piece that our colleague at Daily Faceoff, Hunter Crowther, wrote, Frank. And listen, there are a lot of talented players who are not at this tournament. A handful of countries not being represented. Star power, that's in Cabo right now, or wherever you want to pick. But what if each of the countries that are here were allowed to make a free agent ad and kind of do the call to the bullpen tap and bring one of these guys who's at home into their nation? And Hunter did a great job kind of picking someone from each spot. I disagree with a few of them, including Finland. If Finland could add anyone, they would add a defenseman. My pick was Roman Josi.
So you can go any country that's not part of your...
Yeah, that's not part of the four. Any player who's sitting at home from, again, a country not competing, and add them onto a roster. So I had Josi going for Finland. I had Canada. They need one of the Russian goalies, Shesterkin, Vasilevsky. And then for Team Sweden, I had them adding Leon Draisaitl.
Come on.
Depth down the middle.
Yeah, I mean, you
can't go
insane.
wrong
no,
with these picks.
That's insane to think about. But what's so interesting to me is still some of the pieces that are left on the floor from their own countries.
Yeah.
Like, what happens if the U.S. right now, as you see Chris Kreider on the outside looking in at this tournament from a lineup perspective, what if you could add back in Jason Robertson?
Yeah.
The way that Robertson has played since Christmas, huge driver for the Dallas Stars. I'd have to think that for a guy that played his way off of this team, would they like a do-over now? I mean, I'm not saying that they made a mistake, because let's see what happens with Brock Nelson and Kreider and et cetera. But I just wonder about some of the guys that didn't make it for their own countries. Like, what if you took Zach Hyman and placed him on Sweden?
Yeah, I mean, what about we joked about how deep the U.S. crease is. What if Canada could have poached one of those goalies who got
Demko.
cut?
What if they could have just gotten Joey Daccord a Canadian passport?
Well,
I mean, that's the thing, though. That was the point that was made about Logan Thompson. The people were saying, oh, what happened with Logan Thompson? Why isn't he on Team Canada's roster? For me, is Logan Thompson changing your tournament? Is Joey Daccord changing your tournament? I'm not knocking those guys. I'm just saying the difference, we're talking marginal, 5%, 3%, whatever it might be, from Binnington and Aiden Hill to those two guys.
Yeah, and you talk about the marginal difference, like, you know, we're doing the Kreider or Robertson, Zach Hyman, or whoever it is whose spot he would have taken. And it's like, okay, playing the role that they are, especially, I guess, the example on Team USA, like, how big of an impact can you make in the 11, 12 minutes you're getting as a fourth line winger?
Let's spin this one other direction quickly. If you could add another nation to this tournament, what would you do? Like, I just had a guy stop me outside on my way in to do the show, and he goes, "Hey, Paisan, how come Team Italy's not here?" Like, I'm like, dude, they can't even win in soccer. Like, it's
priorities.
Not going to be hockey, but I'm looking forward to the 2026 Olympics and the Italian hockey team being in it.
Yeah, that will be funny. If I could add one more nation, I mean, like, again, if the geopolitical stuff, if Russia could be here, this tournament has a totally different vibe to it. That's an obvious one.
I'd go Switzerland.
Yeah, Switzerland. So you have Josi,
Niederreiter, go through the whole list.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Germany is starting to make a compelling little roster as well. I'm excited to see what they can do.
Shout out to Oilers Nation Germany.
Yeah, shout out to OilersNation.de. But like Stützle, Draisaitl, the blue line's starting to come together with Mo Seider. Like, there's pieces coming on that German team. They will not be an easy out in the 2026 Olympics.
You can dream.
Yeah, why not? All right, let's get to our guest segment for the day, live in person. Scott Burnside. It's brought to you by our friends at Charm Diamond Centers. You can check out their large selection of Canadian lab-grown diamonds and mined diamonds by visiting them online. You can also apply for the Charm Diamond Flexity card, which allows you to get approved for no interest financing on your purchase in a matter of minutes. Once again, you can use the Charm Diamond Masterpiece program to get a custom ring built and delivered in just 4 weeks. Find out more by visiting them at charmdiamondcenters.com. Always a pleasure to have a chance to chat with our friend Scott Burnside. You can find him on Twitter, Overtime Scotty B. You can read his work at the NHLPA.com. Right. And Scott, let's just start with maybe it's a bit of a general question, but the historical view of this tournament. I even heard John Cooper the other day talking about the 87 Canada Cup, and there's a lot of fans that are pessimistic about this tournament, but where do you come out on how maybe we'll view this tournament when it's done?
Yeah, and it's a great question. I think initially, I was a bit skeptical when they first announced it, a little over a year ago, but I've really sort of warmed up to it, and I'll tell you why, and Frank, and both you guys, I'm sure have seen this, but to see how much the players want to be here, to see the vibe in all the rooms. I talked to Victor Hedman, like it brings a tear to my eye when he starts talking about putting on the Trey Kroner and with the C on it, and how basically when he walked out of the Tampa dressing room after their final game, he closed the door on that, and he was all about Sweden, and he is so proud to be here and be part of this. And the players around the NHL, I just asked John Cooper just before I came up. I'm working on a piece on Drew Doughty, and no one epitomizes that more than Drew Doughty, right? Didn't find out till Saturday afternoon. I can't even begin to use the language he shared with me and how he reacted when John Cooper called him. But I think it's the fact that people want to be here. Sidney Crosby, another guy that, missed a couple of games leading up to the break. And to me, that tells you how important this is. There's never going to be another tournament. This is the only Four Nations face-off ever.
Right. But I think that speaks to how hungry everyone has been for international hockey. Like the fact that we haven't had true best on best since 2014 in Sochi, and I'd even hesitate to call this true best on best because there's no Russia here. It's a different tournament, but if you aren't into this tournament, I guess my message would be wait till Saturday.
Yeah.
Finland, Sweden, Canada, US, take that and hook it right into my veins on Saturday night.
Totally.
So when you see that fire and compete, that's probably what's going to win people over.
Yeah, and I think that's really what it's about because, I think people maybe if they're skeptical and they think, equate it to an all-star weekend, and which is, with all due respect to the NHL, there's no good format. Thank God we're not having all-stars.
Because you can't draw the compete out, but you're going to have to try and tone it down.
That's it. Well, I think, for sure Saturday, Canada, US, but how about tonight? That Swedish roster is chock full of winners. And in this tournament, if you lose game one, man, your back is against it right away. So, and I think you're right, Frank. I mean, how do you make sure that you don't get too over the top? And the idea of taking penalties, frankly, against either of those teams, but especially when you look at Canada's power play, if you're the Swedes, you got to toe that line just so precisely.
Mm-hmm. And you're right. I think the pressure ratchets up, particularly all these questions about Canadian goaltending. What happens if the first goal goes in on Jordan Binnington and Bell Center starts to get a little antsy? I'm curious, though, from your perspective, having had a chance to spend time around all four teams so far in the couple days that we've been here, is there a storyline that we haven't been talking about enough?
I think it's I'm not sure that it's I'm sure that everyone is, if you organize this, what you're looking for is Canada-US. That's the dream matchup in the championship game in Boston. I mean, who doesn't want that? But I think that to underestimate, especially Sweden, I know the Finns with the injuries to the blue line, but I was looking at their lineup. Again, if you get good goaltending, there are a lot of good players on that Finnish team. I think the idea that this truly could be, could be any of these four teams. And I don't know if that's a storyline necessarily. Canada, US are clear favorites. They should be. But the gap isn't as big as a lot of people think.
I like the point you made in your story about Sebastian Aho saying, like, hey, I grew up with these guys. Like, if there's any group that's going to come together quick, it might be the Finns.
Well, that's their DNA, right? I mean, you think back to, I think back to Sochi and the Finns beating, a Team USA in the bronze medal game. They always show up and they always play as one unit. And I talked to Sebastian Aho about this. I said, is that really, is it really part of your DNA? And I think because they're a small nation, they know each other so well. I mean, this whole thing with Mikko Rantanen going to Carolina and like those guys are pals, right? Like they're, it's like his brother coming to join that team. And I think that brotherhood is very real in that Finnish locker room. Now, can it overcome the loss of Miro Heiskanen and the other two defensemen that would have been on this roster to start with? I don't know. That's a tall order against the rest of the firepower, but I don't think you should sleep on the Finns. And who doesn't want to see Finland and Sweden?
A massive upset.
Oh my gosh.
It would be unbelievable to have Finland win any one of these games, I think.
I think that's right too.
What could also take and flip this tournament on its head.
Yeah, absolutely.
So give us your picks. Who wins and why?
Maybe such a hackneyed phrase, but I don't know how you can go against Team USA, who have the best three goaltenders in this tournament, right? Not just the best in their starting. Connor Hellebuyck's going to win another Vezina, but all three of their goaltenders are elite. They put them, I think, a step and a half above everyone. I think it will be Canada-US in that championship game, and I think that ultimately it comes down to the goaltending, and I think the Americans win it.
They got to slay the 800-pound gorilla. That's the thing. And The biggest thing that stands out to me is you can talk about this being the best Team USA that's ever been assembled. And that roster, it's 100% true. But the numbers don't lie. The success that Canada's had, the sheer number of winners, the U.S. might have the best three goalies, but Canada has the best three players in this tournament, period.
And let's say they're down by a goal in the third period. I mean, if John Cooper wants to, he could just alternate Crosby, McKinnon, then McDavid. Crosby, McKinnon, then McDavid. Then in the final minute, think of the six guys you're putting on the ice. Like, again, I want nothing more. Canadian, I would love to see Canada win. But for the drama of it, I'd love to see USA up by one in the third period of that final, because I just think that final 20 minutes and the push we'd see from Canada would be an all-timer.
I think we've seen that before. I mean, Scott covered one of those games. So that would be electric. But the U.S., they got to do it. And that's one thing that's really been missing is it's been a really long time, 1996, that you've seen them prevail. And it's almost like I'm at the point where until I see it, I'm going to go with Canada.
Well, and just to, and looking ahead to the Olympics a year from now in 2026, I mean, how devastating would it be for Team USA to lose to Canada, maybe in a, overtime or very hard-fought game in the championship? That will sit on their shoulders for an entire year until the 2026 Olympics.
I think that's
begin.
The best thing that could happen to the U.S.
Yeah, I don't know. See, I think it's the opposite. I think if the Americans win this tournament, I think that changes their whole swagger going into 2026. But
changes the whole way we look at international hockey, I think, because then you stack on the back-to-back World Junior Golds and you stack on the success that the U.S. has had, how 41% of the league is Canadian and the U.S. is 29, and that, the shift is coming. And it's still, though, Canada, the elite of the elite. And I just don't know that we've talked enough about Quinn Hughes missing this tournament. Like, it's a massive material change to the U.S. chances.
Yeah, it is going to be huge. We talk about the star power on Team Canada. I guess to go a little bit more on Team USA, who are you looking to in that forward group to kind of lead them? Because, there is an Austin Matthews, but as Frank pointed out earlier in our show, he's not having the typical Austin Matthews-esque year. There's an Eichel who's won a Stanley Cup. Kachuk, there's all these pieces, but who can be the guy?
Well, I think Jack Eichel is probably one of the most important players on that team. Does he end up facing off or matching up against Connor McDavid? His two-way game, maybe people don't appreciate it that much, and he's
close to Selke caliber.
He is close to Selke caliber, absolutely. But in terms of a game breaker offensively, and again, I think people may not quite understand how good he is, but Kyle Connor is blazingly fast, and he is the real deal when it comes to delivering the goods. Now, that whole Winnipeg team has to get over the hump. We talk about Connor Hellebuyck. I mean, it's a team that hasn't fulfilled on, or
On
made
their
good on
playoff success, yeah.
expectations. But I think Kyle Connor's a guy that you can watch on Team USA.
Scott, as always, really appreciate your time. Enjoy the tournament, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me aboard.
There you go. Scott Burnside. You can find his work at NHLPA.com. We're going to get along to our Ask DFO question. It's brought to you by JP Weisers, proud to be the official whiskey of the NHL, offering Canadian hockey fans a premium drink choice to enhance every game night experience from across the country. So tonight, if you got the game on, kick your feet up, pour yourself a nice glass of JP Weisers. It is the official whiskey of game night. And Frank, as I go and start to scan through the daily Faceoff YouTube here, we did actually, and we've been, obviously the hockey world is dialed in on this tournament, but hockey fans still want to talk trades. Frank,
of course they do.
Is there any situation you're monitoring in the next couple of weeks here? Something that you got an eye on?
Look, I think there's been a lot of buzz around Scott Laughton. I don't want to say it's cooled, but I think it's where we went into this tournament thinking, hey, this guy could be dealt before game one. I'm not so sure that he's going to be dealt at all during these next 12 days. Certainly possible. And there's been lots of talk around Rasmus Ristolainen. I think the Flyers have been one of those teams that have been very active. But don't sleep on the Seattle Kraken. Mm-hmm. They've got 4 guys on our board.
What do you make of the Jared McCann rumors?
Look, I think the Seattle Kraken need to be open to anything, but I think if you're creating a pecking order of players that they'd be interested in moving, Jared McCann would be way further down that list, even though he has some of the most value on that team. The issue is, if you're going to find some running mates, you're going to need a guy like Jared McCann to put up goals, and that would be hugely critical for them moving forward. So I don't want to pour cold water on it. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I think it's way further down the list.
That's fair. Let's get to our daily bets, brought to you by Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Frank, we got a game tonight with odds. Canada, massive favorites. We talked yesterday. Again, I don't want to bet against Team Canada, but there's value on Team Sweden in this game, I think. That's a big line, a big number, plus 220. Plus 195.
It is big, but it's still not quite 2-1.
Okay.
It wouldn't be enough for me to get involved. Obviously, I wouldn't bet anyway, but that wouldn't be enough to get me off my couch.
I don't mind the over in this one. It's set at an even 6. Again, talking about Philip Gustafsson, hasn't been his best the last couple of months. Both these Canadian goalies, we know the storyline there. The fact it's at 6, not 6.5, leans or has me leaning a little bit more to the over. We also have goal scorer props from our friends at Bet365. And
even minus 1.5 on the puck line isn't really that juicy at plus 105. That would be theoretically the play, but I'm with you. If you just put a blindfold on and I said, could Canada score 6 goals on their own tonight? You would say yes.
Absolutely. Who could score those goals for Team Canada? Nathan McKinnon is number 1 on the odds board, but I like the guy that's number 2. Sam Reinhart will be the shooter on Connor McDavid's wing. He's also going to be the net front guy and kind of in that slot bumper position on Canada's power play. Plus 165 for Sam Reinhart to score. I don't mind that at all.
That's a pretty good bet, and I would say have a day. Get wild. Give me a first-time goal scorer. First goal scorer. That'd be awesome.
You know what? I will. I think Sweden will strike first and stun him. I'd go Adrian Kempe, first goal scorer. I think it's plus 1,400.
He was my X factor.
He was. All right, let's wrap up the show with a little bit of garbage time. And Frank, as we've seen the players take to the ice in practice, first off, some of the goalie equipment is absolutely beautiful, but I do love some of the players getting in the custom gear game as well, including some skates from Team Finland. Team Canada has a few guys rocking these as well.
Yeah, so this is the Team Sweden skates, and you and I were down there yesterday, right outside the locker rooms, and we're talking about just some of the off-ice gear that they were wearing. You love the hats and some of the hoodies. That part's been awesome, but to see the custom gear skates, all 4 teams have some beautiful skates. But more than that, you're seeing some really cool sticks as well. So you get one of those international tournaments, great to rep your country, fly the flag. This is such a cool opportunity to kind of also do something a little bit different, right? Like something that you normally wouldn't wear, a little bit of flash, and keep it classy.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. The Trey Kronar on the skates for Team Sweden is a pretty sharp look. All right, Frank and I are going to be in the rink live for the game tonight, and then after the game, we're going to do a little special live edition afterwards for our friends at JP Weiser. So if you're sitting down watching the game, when the final buzzer goes, fire up the YouTube channel, and we'll be breaking things down.
Can't wait. It's going to be a really interesting game. I'm telling you, this could put some people and this country on pins and needles.
It could be quite.
Or not.
Yeah, or it's
That's
Canada.
the thing, or it's a massive blow. I mean, it could be anything. So.
Either way, the storyline coming out of this, and again, it's going to lead us into Canada USA on Saturday. It's going to be fascinating on either side.
What's crazy to think about is, so the U.S. is probably gets a little bit of a beneficial start on the schedule.
Yep.
They get one more day to kind of practice today, and then they get Finland, who's been decimated. So it's not that they can, slide into the Four Nations face-off, but it's a lot easier than going up against what's the clear third best team in this tournament.
Could be a blessing in disguise, though. Could just perk you right up and be
or
ready
not.
to go.
But that's the thing, though.
Yeah.
If you let's just game this out, okay? Yeah. Quickly, hypothetical. Canada loses 3-2 tonight.
Yep.
Then you got the U.S. on Saturday, and if the U.S. wins,
you're done.
Good night.
Yeah, you're right. Hey. Well, either way, we'll have plenty to break down tonight live here on the YouTube. Everybody in the chat, you were great. Look forward to seeing you all tonight. For our producer, Pat Puff, Frank, I'm Tyler Yaremchuk, saying enjoy the hockey, and we'll chat with you later on this evening. What's up, hockey fans? If you like that video, do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the Daily Faceoff YouTube, because we have tons of great content, from exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick to instant analysis and breaking news with our Daily Faceoff insider, Frank Seravalli, on Daily Faceoff Live, to your go-to morning duo, Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohen, on Morning Cup of Hockey. Plenty of great content, wall-to-wall, team-to-team, all the way across the entire league. And you won't miss it if you subscribe.